So have you ever read something that was a really good story? It was a really good story. It was well written. It was well done. And it had all the components that make it a good story. And then you decided you wanted to tell somebody that story. And you tried to tell them the story and you messed up. And it didn't have the power when you told it as it did when you read it. That's what would happen if I tried to just tell you this morning. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to spend a good part of my sermon time this morning, most of it, sharing the story. Moses did a great job with it. He gets credit for writing, for this being written down. So he did a great job with it. And so we're going to just follow Moses' words, and we're going to go from Scripture to tell the ins and outs of what it means to get a blessing and how to not get a blessing. Okay? So, in chapter 27 of Genesis, it goes this way. It starts this way. When Isaac had grown old and his eyesight was failing, he summoned his older son Esau and said to him, "My son." Now, before I go further, let me just mention, remember Isaac is Abraham's son. Abraham has received this blessing that he would bless, that his family would bless all of the world, all the families of the world. And so Isaac is his only son, and he had Ishmael with Hagar, with the maid, and then he had Ishmael or Isaac rather later. So Isaac now is getting old, and so that's the son, and they have twin boys. They have Jacob and Esau. So that's where we're at in the story. He summoned his older son. They're twins, but Esau came out first. And he said to him, "My son." And Esau said, "I'm here." He said, "I am old and I don't know when I will die. So now take your hunting gear, your bow and quiver of arrows, go out to the field and hunt game for me. Make me the delicious food that I love and bring it to me so I can eat. Then I can bless you before I die." Rebekah, this is Isaac's wife. Rebekah was listening when Isaac spoke to his son Esau. When Esau went out to the field to hunt game to bring back, Rebekah said to her son Jacob, this is the younger of the twins, "I just heard your father say to your brother Esau, 'Bring me some game and make me some delicious food so I can eat. And I will bless you in the Lord's presence before I die. Now, my son, listen to me, to what I'm telling you to do. Go to the flock and get me 2 healthy young goats so I can prepare them as the delicious food your father loves. You can bring it to your father. He will eat, and then he will bless you before he dies." Jacob said to his mother, Rebekah, "My brother Esau is a hairy man." Remember, Esau means hairy, so he's a hairy. Hairy is a hairy. My brother Esau is a hairy man, but I have smooth skin. What if my father touches me and thinks I'm making fun of him? I will be cursed instead of blessed. His mother said to him, "Your curse will be on me, my son. Just listen to me. Go and get them for me." So he went and got them and brought them to his mother, and his mother made the delicious food that his father loved. Rebekah took her older son Esau's favorite clothes that were in the house with her, and she put them on her younger son Jacob. On his arms and his smooth neck, she put the hide of young goats, and the delicious food and the bread she had made, she put into her son's hands. Jacob went to his father and said, "My father." And he said, "I'm here. Who are you, my son?" And Jacob said to his father, "I'm Esau." You get this? Jacob says, right? "I'm Esau, your oldest son. I've made what you asked me to. Sit up and eat some of the game so you can bless me." Isaac said to his son, "How could you find this so quickly, my son?" He said, "The Lord your God led me right to it." Isaac said to Jacob, "Come here and let me touch you, my son. Are you my son Esau or not?" So Jacob approached his father Isaac, and Isaac touched him and said, "The voice is Jacob's voice, but the arms are Esau's arms." Isaac didn't recognize him because his arms were hairy like Esau's arms. So he blessed him. Isaac said, this is the third time, Isaac said, "Are you really my son Esau?" And Jacob said, "I am." Isaac said, "Bring some food here. Let me eat some of my son's game so I can bless you." Jacob put it before him, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. His father Isaac said to him, "Come here and kiss me, my son." So he came close and kissed him. When Isaac smelled the scent of his clothes, he blessed him. "See," this is what he says, "see, the scent of my son is like the scent of the field that the Lord has blessed." And then here's the blessing. "May God give you showers from the sky, olive oil from the earth, plenty of grain and new wine. May the nations serve you. May peoples bow down to you. Be the most powerful man among your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Those who curse you will be cursed, and those who bless you will be blessed." So after Isaac had finished blessing Jacob, and just as Jacob left his father Isaac, his brother Esau came back from the hunt. He too made some delicious food, brought it to his father, and said, let my father sit up and eat from his son's game, so that you may bless me." Right? His father Isaac said to him, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm your son, your older son, Esau." Listen to this. Isaac was so shocked, I might say angry, but shocked that he trembled violently. He said, "Who was the hunter just here with game? He brought me food and I ate all of it before you came. I blessed him," and listen, "and he will stay blessed." When Esau heard that what his father said, he let out a loud agonizing cry and wept bitterly. He said to his father, "Bless me, me too, my father." Isaac said, "Your brother has already come deceitfully and taken your blessing." Esau said, this is interesting. Esau said, "Isn't that why he's called grabber, heel grabber, or Jacob? He's taken me twice now. He took my birthright," which is a double portion of the percentage. "And now he's taken, of the inheritance rather, and now he's taken my blessing." He continued, "Haven't you saved a blessing for me?" Isaac replied to Esau, "I've already made him more powerful than you, and I made all of his brothers his servants. I made him strong with grain and wine. What can I do for you, my son?" Esau said to his father, "Do you really have only one blessing, father? Bless me too, my father." And Esau wept loudly. His father Isaac responded and said to him, now this is the blessing for Esau. This is the second blessing. "Now you will make a home far away from the olive groves of the earth, far away from the showers of the sky above. You will live by the sword. You will serve your brother." But listen to this. "But when you grow restless, you will tear away his harness from your neck." Esau was furious at Jacob because his father had blessed him. And Esau said to himself, "When the period of mourning for the death of my father is over, I will kill my brother." Rebekah was told that her older son Esau was what he was planning. So she summoned her younger son Jacob and said to him, Esau, your brother, is planning revenge. He plans to kill you. So now, my son, listen to me. Get up and escape to my brother Laban in Haran. Live with him for a short while until your brother's rage subsides, until your brother's anger at you goes away, and he forgets what you did to him. Then I will send for you and bring you back from there. Why should I suffer the loss of both of you on one day? Rebekah then said to Isaac, this is the husband, I really loathe these Hittite women. If Jacob marries one of the Hittite women, like the women of this land, why should I go on living? A little dramatic maybe, right? So Isaac summoned Jacob, blessed him again, and gave him these orders. Don't marry a Canaanite woman. Get up and go to Padan Aram, to the household of Bethuel, your mother's father, and once there, marry one of the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. God Almighty will bless you, make you fertile, give you many descendants, so that you will become a large group of peoples. He will give you and your descendants Abraham's blessings, so that you will own the land in which you are now immigrants, the land God gave to Abraham. So Isaac sent Jacob off, and he traveled to Padan Aram and to Laban, son of Bethuel, the Aramean, and the brother of Rebekah, Jacob and Esau's mother. Esau understood that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him to Padan Aram and to marry a woman from there. He also recognized that when Isaac blessed Jacob, he ordered him, don't marry a Canaanite woman, and that Jacob had listened to his father and mother and gone to Padan Aram. Esau realized that his father Isaac considered Canaanite women unacceptable. Let me just stop for a minute, okay? We're talking about marrying people that are unacceptable. I want you to understand that this is not racism. This is Christian or the religious beliefs. What is unacceptable about the Canaanite women is they bring with them they're serving other gods, they're worshiping other gods. Again, time and again, after this, the people of Israel are told not to marry into other nations, not because God doesn't love those people, but it's because those people bring in to the household of God the false gods and the idols. So I just wanted to mention that because we've talked about these people not being acceptable to be a part of, and I just think that's important for us to understand. So what happened in verse 9? It says that Esau went to Ishmael. This would be Isaac's older brother, his uncle. He went to Ishmael and married Mahalath, daughter of Abraham's son Ishmael and sister of Nebaioth, in addition to his other wives. Jacob left Beersheba, that's where they were living. Jacob left Beersheba and set out for Haran. He reached a certain place and spent the night there. When the sun had set, he took one of the stones at that place and put it near his head. Then he lay down there. He dreamed and saw a raised staircase, its foundation on earth and its top touching the sky, and God's messengers were ascending and descending on it. Suddenly the Lord was standing on it, saying, I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are lying. Your descendants will become like the dust of the earth. You will spread out to the west, the east, the north, and the south. Every family of earth will be blessed because of you and your descendants. I am with you now. I will protect you everywhere you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done everything that I have promised you. When Jacob woke up from his sleep, he thought to himself, the Lord is definitely in this place, but I didn't know it. He was terrified and thought, this place is sacred, or is awesome. The sacred place is awesome. It's none other than God's house and the entrance to heaven. After Jacob got up early in the morning, he took the stone that he had put near his head, set it up as a sacred pillar, and poured oil on the top of it. He named that sacred place Bethel, though Luz was the city's original name. Jacob made a solemn promise, and this is a promise based on what God had said to him in the dream. So listen to what he says. If God is with me and protects me on this trip I'm taking, and gives me bread to eat and clothes to wear, and I return safely to my father's household, then the Lord will be my God. This stone that I have set up as a sacred pillar will be God's house. And everything you give me, I will give a tenth back to you. The mess that we're in this story starts with primogeniture. We talked a little bit about that last week, and that's where the oldest child, the oldest son, gets the majority. He also has most of the responsibility for the family. But primogeniture in that society, and many of societies throughout the world, they will not stand for a younger son receiving the blessing. And so what happens in this story is trickery and deception becomes the only means, apparently, through which the younger son can be blessed. And so while that may be a problem for us today, the settlement of the property and inheritance is seldom achieved today without coveting and calculation, right? I mean, so this is what's happening in that day, but how many of us today have had good friends that when they've had the loss of a family member, that they've watched their family fight and connive and do everything they could over $5? It's not much different really than our world today. That's because that's how it is in family. That's the way it gets. And yet, we're also reminded that God's ways are different than ours. So God will work His way. So while Rebekah and Jacob, their deception appears to turn the blessings to Jacob, I think, in fact, the deception is actually a tool, and God ended up using that tool so the blessing would go the way that God originally intended, what He had already chosen. Remember, God had told Rebekah when the boys were wrestling in her womb, God had already told Rebekah that the older would serve the younger, that the younger would be the one that would get the blessing. So God has already chosen what He's going to do. Is just how do you get there? So God has chosen and He's destined Jacob in a special way. Now, God doesn't explain here why He inverts the natural order of things. God just simply chooses Jacob in spite of his own merit or the lack of the merit that he would have. As a matter of fact, God's selection of Jacob is a blessing, but it also will be a burden for him throughout his life. So this designation by God begins with trouble. Here we go with all this mess that signifies or really is a statement of who this family is throughout the history of this family. This designation by God begins with that trouble, and again, it marks Jacob's entire life. Now don't get me wrong. Jacob doesn't mind fighting for what he wants. Jacob will not be denied. He's going to get what he wants. He's been accustomed to having his way. He's the twin son, the only two boys of this very wealthy couple that live on the land there, and he becomes accustomed to getting his way. He gets his way, and even though he was just going to get 1/3, he wormed his way through just even a bowl of soup and got 2/3 of the inheritance. That was what the birthright would be, a full 1/3 of that. And so he doubles his income for the remainder of his life with a bowl of soup. That's pretty good trickery. And then Isaac blesses, he worms his way into getting the blessing as well. So Isaac gives the blessing he wants to give, but he gives it to the son to whom he does not want to have it. Isaac, it's funny that Isaac is so interested in making sure that this primogeniture is held on to. I mean, remember, Isaac received Abraham's blessing, right? Was Isaac Abraham's oldest son? No. Ishmael was, right? And so in primogeniture, Ishmael would have received that, but then they sent Ishmael and his mom Hagar off with nothing but some bread and water. And so he's interested in making sure this works. He likes the meals. I think it's interesting. He said, hey, if you'll cook me a meal, I'll give you a blessing. So we kind of got this food thing going on anyway here in this family. And so, but there's something more than, I think, just Rebekah's cunning that's working against what Isaac is intent on doing, and that's giving the blessing to the oldest of the twins. There's also, I think, the power of God working for Jacob. From the beginning, Isaac cannot resist it. I mean, his blessing, this blessing is massive, and it's unqualified. I mean, this blessing that Jacob receives, that Isaac wanted to give to Esau, think about this now. Let me read. I read it from the CEB, but let me read it now from the NRSV. It just says it a little bit differently. This is the blessing. May God give you the dew of heaven and of the fatness of the earth and plenty of grain and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. Be Lord over your brothers, and may your mother's sons bow down to you. Cursed, it continues, it be everyone who curses you, and blessed be everyone who blesses you. This blessing speaks of the things of history. There's political power. There's the preeminence and concerns, and it concerns the things of the earth. Fertility is included here. There's well-being. There's prosperity. There's peace. And Isaac gives a blessing, I think, with less than full certainty that he's really dealing with Esau when he gives it. I mean, how many times did he ask, are you sure? Are you sure this is Esau? And so I think he gives the blessing less without being certain that it's really Esau to begin with. But regardless of how it's achieved, Jacob is blessed by his father, and the older will serve the younger, as the Lord had told Rebekah at previous time. But with all the blessing, with the birthright, I mean, he owns 2/3 of this very, very wealthy family estate. He owns 2/3 of it. With that comes the whole land of what is Canaan, which is now Israel. Yeah, all of that. It's all that. And yet at the end of today's story, in the end of chapter 28, Jacob is a fugitive. Did you notice that? He's the one with the birthright, the double inheritance. He's the one with the blessing that's going to control everything in that region, all the family. But he has to leave everything and everyone he knows behind and run for his life, because his brother's going to kill him for doing what he did to him. And so what happens is he's feeling alone and vulnerable, but then the Lord appears to him in a dream, and he told him this. Now, I want to read this passage one more time. This is also I want to do that from the NRSV. It says, know that I am with you, and that I will keep you where you go, and bring you back to this land. For I will not leave you until I have done what I promised you. Those were God's words, as the Lord's words, as he was speaking to him as he was there at that stair or the ladder, whatever, going into heaven. I think in this moment of conversion, I would say, Jacob responded by worshiping God, and then he makes a vow. And listen to what Jacob's vow is. He says, if God will be with me, which God said He would, and will keep me in this way that I go, which God said He would, and will give me bread to eat and clothing to wear, which God said He would, so that I come again to my father's house in peace, which God said He would, then the Lord shall be my God. And this stone which I have set up for a pillar shall be God's house, and all that you give me, I will surely give 1/10. Jacob will trust God. He will worship God, and he will give 10% to God. That's what he says. I'm going to trust God, I'm going to worship God, and I'm going to give 10%. Before this time, Yahweh has been God of my father and my grandfather, Abraham and Isaac. At this point, I think this is the conversion. He becomes now my God as well as the God of my ancestors. So here's the thing as I finish. As a part of the blessing, for you and I, being spiritual children of Abraham, I hope we will make the same promises. And so I want to close and finish this today with these thoughts, with a challenge actually. Offer you a challenge. Because we are spiritually Abraham's descendants, right? And so I want to challenge you to make these same promises. Offer you this challenge to respond as Jacob did and ask God through His Holy Spirit to help you trust the Lord. Now that will include in family matters when sometimes it's hard to turn things over because we're pretty sure we know best. That would be in those fiscal matters, the money matters, when it's hard to turn that over to someone else because we're pretty sure we know best. But we're going to trust God. I challenge you to ask God to help you trust Him in all things. Secondly, I challenge you to join Jacob, who becomes Israel, to worship the Lord at all times. Now, when Jake and the band are in a groove, it's easy to worship. Man, it's fun. Even I have kind of a move when they're going, okay? Not really, but kind of. And then, man, it's easy to worship God. But sometimes when things are going the other way, it's not quite as easy to worship God. Sometimes when things aren't going our way, we're kind of wondering where God is. Sometimes it's not quite as easy to worship. So my challenge to you is in those times to worship God. Find a way to worship God in those. And then what was the third part that he said? Worship God. He's going to trust God in all things. Worship God at all times. Those are the two. The third challenge is to give a tithe unto the Lord. Pretty simple. It's a challenge that you give. God has blessed us with so much, and we just can give a very small portion back to bless others. I think that's the completion of the blessing. If we want to receive the blessings of God, then we need to find a way to bless others because that's why we're blessed. Right? God said, Abraham, I will bless you, so you will be blessing to all the earth. Isaac, when he gets a blessing from his father, you're a blessing because you will be a blessing to all people of the nations. Jacob receives the blessing. He receives the blessing of Abraham. I'm blessing you so that you can bless all the peoples of the earth. Part of that's with the way we use our income, the blessings of fiscal of money. So I challenge you. Trust God always. In all things, worship God always. And find a way to take what you have and bless others with it. Would you pray with me?